Before we get to that lesson at a construction site, huge thank you to the sponsor of this English lesson, Link. They are offering 40% off a 12-month membership to new users. There is a link for you in the comment section. Now let's get to that construction site. Almost every night, my wife and I walk down this street, and last night I noticed there was a lot of construction going on here, and I thought it would be the perfect place to teach an English lesson. Now, unfortunately, for the people who live on the street, this construction company is basically tearing up the street. That's the English phrasal verb I would use, tearing up this street. I'm not exactly sure why construction is happening here, but I think it has something to do with the pipes under the road, maybe the water source or something. But either way, there used to be tar on this street, and now we would call this a dirt road. I feel bad for the people who like to take care of their lawns because it's definitely getting torn up. They did this on my street a couple years ago, and it wasn't very fun, but everything is back to normal now. It's going to take a little while for this road to get back to normal. But the first term I would like to teach you is stake. You see that wooden stick that has been stuck in the ground here? We would call that a stake. And there is an orange ribbon tied to that stake. On this construction site, you will see some heavy machinery. This thing right here is called a bulldozer. And it doesn't have wheels. It has something we call tracks. And the place where a person sits is called the cab. And you see that tall thing there? I think we'd call that a smokestack. The next thing right down here, we would call this a cone, an orange cone, maybe a pylon. This big piece of machinery right here, we would call that a backhoe. And this part of the backhoe right here, we would call that the bucket. This thing over here, you usually find that in the middle of the road. We would probably call that a manhole. So this sign is not in the middle of the road. It was in the middle of the road yesterday. And if you see a sign that says road closed, that basically means you cannot travel on that road, at least in a car. My wife and I walked down the road, but you can't drive your car. Or you might see for local traffic only. If you see that, that means if you live on the street, you can travel down the road. But if you don't live on the street, you need to stay out. All right, there's a piece of machinery over here that is designed to make the road smooth. And we'd call this big machine a grader. Look at that, a bucket here. It's not attached to a machine right now. Can you hear those birds? There are some very angry birds over there. I think it's a crow. I just filmed an English lesson about bones, and I talked about skeletons. There are actually 3 skeletons hanging in that tree. Luckily, they're just for Halloween. Decorations for Halloween. All right, let's talk about this big machine over here and what it is hauling. Over there, you can see a dump truck. And it looks like a Jeep might be coming this way. I'll have to get out of the road. But this thing is called a dump truck. Those are some mud flaps right behind the tire. We call those things mud flaps. I'm sure it's locked. I don't want to get in trouble for trying to break into a truck. We might call that a side view mirror up there. So that thing behind me is called a dump truck, and it is hauling a trailer. And wow, I think there's another car coming behind me. Very popular road. Let me take a minute to talk about today's sponsor, Link. It is the app I have been using for the last 4 years to learn Italian and Portuguese. And right now, for their Black Friday sale, they are offering a deal to new users where you get 40% off a 12-month membership. One of the things I like most about Link is the amount of lessons you can learn with is limitless. There is no limit. If you see a news article you want to learn with, you can import it in Link. Any of my lessons on YouTube, you can import that into Link. And Link keeps track of the words you know and the words you don't know. And the best thing about Link is that you can learn from anywhere. Maybe you like learning on the desktop computer. You can do that. I prefer to learn on my phone. I even studied LingQ on a plane. So if LingQ sounds like something you might like, go to the comment section and find that link that will give you 40% off. And now back to the English lesson at a construction site. This construction company has just left all of their equipment out. We're going to be talking about some pretty small things in a minute. Let me know, in your country, do you think a construction company would leave these things out overnight? I mean, they could be stolen after all. Luckily, I live in a really safe neighborhood. A lot of small things behind me. The first thing I would like to teach you is this thing. It's called a wheelbarrow. And behind it, this long thing you might know as a ladder. Yeah, I mean, somebody could just come and steal this wheelbarrow if they wanted to. Got some trash bags, heavy-duty trash bags full of something. It could be trash. That looks like trash to me. This thing behind me, this white thing, we would call that a pickup truck. Also good for hauling smaller things. Not as big as a dump truck, but in the back of this truck, we might call it the bed, there is a push broom and some kind of shovel way over there. And some aluminum cans. Oh, looks like somebody likes Monster, just like me. All right, this thing in English, this little yellow thing right here, I have no idea what that is called in English, but I just texted my brother. I have a feeling he will know. And if he knows, I will put it up on the screen. Maybe you've seen the English lesson I did in my brother's backyard.
It's easier for people to handle, and it actually produces a bit bigger flame when the wood is smaller.
Really?
So they'll have a larger fire in their fire pit.
I will leave a link to it at the end of this lesson. But let me know in the comments, would you like to see more lessons with my brother? Or maybe you don't like my brother. Tell me, no, keep that guy out of your English lessons. He's no good. You know what? I think he just texted me actually. Because I texted him, nope, that's my daughter. Now, I'm not sure why, but behind me is a trailer and it is full of something we call hay bales. Bales of hay. And we might call that a strap, that yellow thing that would hold it together. We might say those bales of hay are strapped down, but it's actually not attached to anything. I'm not sure why bales of hay are needed to put tar on a road. Just filming an English lesson here. I said, don't bother, don't worry about me, I'll stay out of your way.
Okay, no problem.
Just filming an English lesson. You can never be too safe at a construction site. This is a fire extinguisher. Extinguish. It's a very fancy way to say put out a fire. You might also hear that English phrasal verb. If there's a fire, you want to put it out. Maybe with water or maybe with a fire extinguisher. This machine is a loader, but it doesn't have the typical attachment. If you attach something to another thing, you kind of like stick it together, you put it together. This doesn't have a bucket on the front. The bucket is over there. Instead, this has a forklift on the front. Shout out to Filippo. You may have seen him in the chat from time to time. In the last live lesson, he left a couple super chats, so thank you so much, Filippo. So we might call these things dad shoes, but these two things, we might call them the forks, or we might actually call them the tines. Tines. Not a very common English word, but if you think about a fork that you might use at dinner, those little pointy things are also called tines. Most forks have 4 tines. Right now I am crouched down in this bucket. I hope you have enjoyed this English lesson. Maybe you learned a little something. If you want to learn more things outside, there's an English lesson right up there where I visit my brother's backyard. Thank you so much. My knees are starting to hurt. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.